Alexander. I'm a postdoc at the Faculty of Information in the University of Toronto. Tonight I'd just like to go through getting set up with BB Collaborate. Hopefully this makes things a little bit easier for you and your classes go online. So we're just going to open up a web browser, just a normal web browser, and so I tend to use Safari, and then we're going to go to Quercus, and we go to the course that we want to set up BB Collaborate in. The first thing to notice is that we don't have an option for BB Collaborate, and so here on the left-hand panel, we need to add that. The way we're going to do that is by going to Settings. So this is the bottom option for me. We're going to navigate across to Navigation. So this is the third option here for me up the top. And then we're going to scroll down until we can find BB Collaborate. So in my case, it is just here. We're going to click on the hamburger bar, these dots, and we are going to enable it. The important thing here now is to save it. I mean, it's easy just to leave the screen and then we'll have to come back, but just make sure you save it. And you should see that after the page reloads, we have BB Collaborate as an option. So that's great. Now we're going to go in and set up a session. So we click on BB Collaborate. And you can see that by default, they've set up a course room. And so this is great if we just want a space that we could meet. But in our case, we might like to create a specific session. So for instance, if we had a lecture going on, then we might like to create a session for that. So we're going to create a session here. Let's move the movie recording to the other side. We're going to create a session that is going to be called, let's call it Week 10 Lecture. And we might like to change the start and end date. So we'll have it start now and end in a moment, but we could of course set this for much later if we wanted to. We might like to turn on or off guest access, and so in our case we'll turn it off. Early entry is just going to allow students, if they arrive a little bit early, to get set up. They can get set up in the session, and that's probably okay. We do need to go into these session settings, and so we're going to click on that there. And so the default here is that we are going to have students enter as participants. Now this becomes important if you're wanting your students to be able to share their screens. So for instance, if you're doing presentations, you might like to change their default attendee to be a presenter or a moderator, because otherwise they're not able to share their screens. But for now, we'll just leave them as default as participant. We can choose whether we allow them to download recordings, whether we allow anonymous chats and things like that. The one option here that I would like to, or that the faculty has asked that we do check to remove, is to allow attendees to join the session using a telephone. So we'd like to remove that. We just like to make sure that the students don't have the option of ringing up large phone bills by accident. So we're going to save those settings. And now we have created the session, and so we can actually go and join it. There's only going to be us there, but that's okay. So we click the session and then we click join the session. So I'm using Safari, and so BB Collaborate is the first time is going to ask you for a bunch of permissions. So for instance, it needs to access to your microphone, and after that it'll be allowed. I'll just show you that there's nothing down the bottom here, and I'll put myself back down there. And so firstly, we might like to unmute ourselves. So you'll notice that this microphone with a cross through it suggests that we are muted, and so we'll just share our audio. We might like to share our video, and so again, because this is the first time that we're doing this, we're going to be asked for permission, and we're going to allow permission. And so it tries to make sure that you're okay with the video, and then you click share video again and it'll share. Now you can tell that you're sharing your video because you'll show up in the bottom here. We're a little bit lonely here because it's just us tonight, but if we had more students, then they would also show up. The other button here is to is to raise your hand. And although it doesn't make much sense when we are the instructor and it's just us, I've actually found it's fairly handy in terms of when we have 5 or 6 or a large number of students, in terms of enabling them to get our attention without them having to actually unmute themselves and say, "Hi, I'd like to speak," or something like that. So they can just raise their hand. A little notification comes up on the screen saying that students raised their hand, and then you can ask them what their concern is. So unraise our hand. Just like to draw your attention to a few other features of BB Collaborate, and most of these are available in this little right window here. And so I'm just on the bottom right, there is this button, and that button is going to pull out the Collaborate panel. So we're going to click on that, and that's going to give us some options. The first option here is that we've got a chat room, and so we can chat, "Hello everyone," and of course if there was anyone else here, they would be able to see that. But this could be useful for a variety of reasons. Students might like to be able to say, "Oh, I can't hear you," have you unmuted your microphone, things like that. The next tab along, so I'm just clicking this next option here, is that we can see a list of the attendees. The nice thing about this is that it makes it very clear what the roles are. So in our case, we are a moderator, it's our area. But as I was saying before, if you want students to be able to share their screens, then you will need to change their permissions. And the way that you do this is you come into this option here, and then next to them you will be able to click on this, and there will be an option to make them a presenter, and that's what you want enabled to allow them to share their screen. Once they are a presenter, or in our case we already have this permissions, and so we might like to share some content. So we might like to share our screen. So I'm just going to this third option here, share our application screen. And again, now Safari is going to ask me for permission to share my screen, so we're going to allow this. And it's going to look a little bit funny because it's just us and we've already got 2 screens of myself. But eventually it's going to be turtles all the way down here. But you can see that we are sharing our screen, and if we'd like to stop sharing our screen, then we can very easily do that with just clicking on stop sharing. We might like to share a blank whiteboard, and so in this case I'll just push myself down here, and so in this case we can have a pencil, we can scribble around, we can add some text, and so this might be useful if you just want to illustrate a point. And finally we can share a file, and so in this case we might just share this file, and so then this file is going to pop up on the left here. I'll just move myself once again, and so if we'd like to share it, once we've got that, and so then the file pops up, and again we can annotate that if we want, or do what we want. So we'll stop sharing the file, go back to the other options that we have. So we're in command here, and so we could set up a poll. So we could, what do you think? And so good, bad, and then this comes up for all the participants, and they can take our poll. We can add various timers, or we can break out into groups if we want. The other option that is in here is settings, and so that might be useful in case you want to just check what is going on. Finally, I know that some of you might like to record the sessions that you're doing on BB Collaborate, and the way to do that is to go up into this top left option here, this hamburger bar, open session menu, and we might like to start recording, and so we can do that if we would like to. So that comes up saying our session is being recorded. So this is what it looks like actually to everyone else. I'll just move myself away from here. We'll get rid of this, and so they will be able. The students will. This is their view that they will be seeing. So we'll stop recording. And so that is just a very quick introduction to BB Collaborate. I hope you found it useful. I know that there's a lot of resources around to help you get started, and so you're welcome to try and follow up with those. I know the library has a lot of resources, and the BB Collaborate people have a lot of resources. But if you'd like me to walk through anything that I've done tonight, more than happy to, and you should just send me an email. Thanks. Bye.